Hi, everyone. This is Ryan Panchadsaram, one of the co-founders of WhatMatters.com, and you're joining us on our podcast, CFRs. So let's get started. CFRs. Hey, Elizabeth.
Hi, Ryan.
Where are you right now? How many miles apart are we?
We're about 5,437 miles apart, according to Google. Hi, everybody. I'm Elizabeth, and I'm going to be Ryan's co-host on CFRs. So before we jump into today's questions and a preview of what's coming up on the podcast in general, I want to take a moment, Ryan, to talk about what this is. What is this show?
2020 hasn't turned out the way that any of us expected.
Right?
But for us, we've stuck to our goal, our OKR of trying to help 10,000 teams achieve operating excellence using OKRs. And OKRs are a goal-setting system invented by Andy Grove at Intel and taught by John, not only through his slideshows and presentations, but most recently in the book, Measure What Matters.
So if we're talking about OKRs, which is what the book is about, why are we calling this show CFRs?
If you think of OKRs, which stand for objectives and key results, as the drumbeat, keeping us on pace, pushing our teams, giving us the motivation, CFRs, which stand for conversations, feedback, and recognition, are the heartbeat. So OKRs are the drumbeat, keeping us on pace, and CFRs, those are the things that motivate and keep us tied together as a team every step of the way. With this show, we hope to have conversations about leadership. We hope to provide feedback to the teams reaching out to us, sharing their OKRs, and most of all, recognizing amazing work. And so here we have it, CFRs. With this podcast, we're going to feature topics that are relevant to the time of taping. And this year, as it's shown, things are changing really rapidly. So this journey should be pretty incredible, and we're going to go on to it together as we tackle some incredibly hard subjects, fun subjects, and we'll do it all together.
So back to our team's objectives, the WhatMatters.com team's objectives. I think you said something like it's to help a zillion teams.
10,000.
Right? 10,000. So we're going to do just that. We're going to help with all sorts of topics related to leadership, help with understanding the actual framework of OKRs themselves. And then we're going to delve into some quite specific help as we tackle reader questions in every episode. I'll give you more information on how to submit your questions a little bit later, but I really am keen to jump in. You ready, Ryan?
Let's do it.
So to get started, let's talk briefly about getting started. And by that, I mean getting started with OKRs. So if you're just kind of getting into OKRs, that stands for objectives and key results, as Ryan said. And a question that we hear from companies often is, what is the best advice you, Ryan, have for getting started with OKRs?
Of course, I think the best way to think about OKRs when you're getting started is you want to use them to lead. And you have a lot of other processes and tools to help manage. And so OKRs are meant to be the few and most important things that you and your organization need to tackle. And so starting with that mindset that this is the most important is key. The next thing to realize too is that it's meant to be and not encompass everything. As John Doerr likes to say, OKRs are not the sum of all tasks. And so really focus. How do you pick the 1, 2, or 3 OKRs that best capture what your organization's ambitions are? Not 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then you start to try to boil the ocean. So focusing on those few. And then most of all, because you are the leader of the organization, by you doing and adopting this system, you're leading by example. And so think about OKRs as this tool for leadership. Fewer is better, and lead by example. That's my advice. So every time we talk, we're going to take a moment to answer your questions about OKRs, how to write good ones. We're going to cover that.
And how to write really bad ones. We'll probably cover that too. So you're always welcome to drop us a line to hello@whatmatters.com if you need help or guidance or even inspiration for OKRs. I was actually in the inbox, just a little while ago, and I was talking with some readers, and I saw a really good but pretty common question from Edmund in South Carolina. So it has to do with rolling out OKRs to a team or company. And since we just talked about getting started, you up for this one?
Oh yeah, let's do this.
So Edmund is an experienced OKR user, and he asks, in an OKR team meeting, what do you say to an employee who says they don't have time for OKRs? Some on his team apparently are hesitant to add OKRs, or as they think of it as another task that must be done, and they claim they're genuinely busy and have no time to spare.
Edmund, it's a great question because, OKR shouldn't be seen as another tax or another thing to do. And I certainly get a sense that that's what you feel like is happening on the team. And I think one of the ways to convey it and approach it is that OKRs are meant to capture the priorities, right? This isn't replacing the task lists of items that need to be tackled or KPIs that you're tracking, but I think it would be really helpful for the team to articulate what are its priorities, right? What are the objectives that we're trying to set out to do? And if we set out and accomplish them, what are the key results that'll hold true? So in some way, the way to approach it is to say that this is additive. This is going to help us focus. And not only that, I think for your teammate, it's also going to help take things off their plate, right? Because if we can articulate together the OKRs and collectively agree to them, we also know what shouldn't be on the plate or what's lower priority. And so hopefully it creates an environment on your team where you're able to focus on things that truly matter.
So Edmund, I hope that advice from Ryan really helps. And if it doesn't, or you need more information, drop me another line in the inbox and we'll get you sorted. So our next one is, looking at the magic book, Rob from Singapore, right? So Rob says, our team is gearing up to plan our 2021 objectives. Given the pandemic, how can we make sure to set objectives for the future that are achievable and meaningful?
A great question, Rob. Achievable and meaningful. I love the frame there. I think first, focus on meaningful, right? When you're thinking about this planning exercise for 2021, and then look at and approach the achievable part. Because if you focus on the meaningful part for 2021, I think it's the thing that's going to rally everyone on your team behind the year ahead. And, I touched on this in one of the newsletters that we sent out around how the OKR process truly is a marathon that's broken up into these sprints. And each of these sprints give us these opportunities to iterate and continually improve. And so the way to think about 2021 is focus on a few small set of objectives that can articulate what their North Star is for that year, right? Like, where do we want to be at the end of 2021? Articulate what key results will show that we've accomplished that. But when you start the year, you're going to have to craft what you're going to accomplish in Q1 alone. And don't break up your end of year objective into 4 and divide them and spread them across. Like, really swing for the fences every quarter along the way, because what you may find is you'll actually surprise yourself and knock things out of the park. And you may accomplish this 2021 objective in 9 months, not in 12, or maybe in 6. Or quite honestly, sometimes you may find out that it's a bit harder and you actually need a bit more time. And because you're going to be checking in at every quarter along the way, you can also readjust and get a better idea of what the end of 2021 is going to look like. So that's some advice to think about as you think about 2021 planning.
Excellent advice. So Rob, if that didn't answer your question, definitely get back in touch with us. Thinking about 2021 planning, Ryan, and just thinking about the pandemic, I mean, there has been no bigger topic in 2020 than that. What would you say for a team that has sort of gotten used to the sprint stance? So they had to adjust so much in the face of the pandemic that they're struggling to kind of get out of that near-term thinking. So thinking about the next 30 days, what keeps the lights on? How do you get back to, I don't know if it's accepting, I hate to say it, the new normal, but how do you get out of that, okay, what's, the 30-day stance?
Yeah. Elizabeth, you live in our inbox, and you, if we recall, back in March, April timeframe, these emails that we got from teams of folks saying, hey, like my boss, my leadership, we're not changing our OKRs this year. Is that the right thing to do? We've set our 2020 goals. And I think you and I were just replying to emails as fast as we could saying, no, you have to revisit things in this moment because the world changed. And I think that's the powerful thing about OKRs is that we decide them together, right? They're the reflection of our collective commitment. And effectively, that is why we also really, pound the drums and say they have to be separated from compensation. They have to be separated from performance reviews, right? Because this tool is meant to be the drum beat that your organization is rallying behind, not the compensation beat and not those other things. And so back in March, April, May, we were really big proponents. We sent out newsletters, we wrote articles saying, revisit your plans for the year. Ask the team what you think is possible. If you do a quarterly cycle and things are crazy, drop it down to monthly because every single week is so different. And that's that sprinter mentality that I think we all had to get into. And maybe in a lot of ways, an unhealthy sprinting mentality. And our advice now is like, try to shift back into thinking about the marathon, thinking about the longer arcs, the things you want your team to do, because we're getting to the end of the year, and this new normal that you talk about is truly a new normal for now. If you live in the United States, where this is actively still an issue with COVID, our world is slowly trying to get back on track. In other countries, you may be farther along in tackling this pandemic, and so you may actually be back to normal again. But really, this is the new world. The realities that we learned earlier are fact now. So try to think about the longer term in planning.
I think the flexible nature and the flexible framework of OKRs actually serves us well in this moment, in that we can totally flex what we do. And I think when I speak to people in the inbox, I think sometimes we can feel so rigid around company to team to individual and back up the cascade again. And we can get so into are we doing OKRs right, that we almost lose sight of what we're supposed to be using them for, which is achieving our goals. And sometimes our goals shift, i.e. when you're in the face of a pandemic, but the framework can flex to that.
Of course. So the leadership piece because it's all about consistency, right? Like a lot of leadership is consistency, consistent communication, giving your teams a really, confident view of what the future looks like. And the OKR framework helps with that, right? You have a year-long OKR, you break them up into quarters, but even in moments of crisis, the system is really good at helping you articulate consistent visions of how you want to see things. And so use the tool. And send us also more feedback as well too on
definitely
the inbox, because you're living this day in, day out. And so how are you shifting to 21 planning, right? Like what does 2021 look for you? Are you still thinking only a quarter or a month ahead, or are you actually able to plan for this new normal? We'd love to know. I know Elizabeth would, I would, and the team would.
Absolutely. I think, we say it in the newsletter that we're all in this together, but we really are. And knowing how other companies, whether they're similar or different, are handling things, there's gold in that. I call myself an OKR enthusiast. And as such, I know I'm really going to enjoy the coaching aspect of this. I feel like sometimes I get a little bit glassy-eyed when you're answering questions because I'm so interested in the answer, because it's stuff that we hear from our readers, and I'm just fascinated by it. But what topics are you looking forward to us covering?
Of course. So CFRs, right? For us here, we're going to have more conversations about how OKRs can be used in all walks of life, right? Not just companies, but nonprofits, in our schools, in our hospitals, and for governments as well too, right? So those conversations are going to fold into the weeks ahead. We've also are going to continue to answer questions that come in through the inbox. And I think we're going to try to feature some folks as well too on the podcast as well too, giving some live feedback and really iterating together on the feedback part. And then most of all, it's about the recognition piece too, right? How to lift up leaders who are doing OKRs well, right? Ones that are doing it well around diversity and inclusion. And so we're going to help have some, tough conversations here about how to set D&I based OKRs and bringing folks on that can help us work through that. And also how for, in the community setting, how you can use OKRs to strengthen our communities. We've got a lot ahead. And so
we do. And actually, this will be one of the only episodes where it's just you and I. So I need to treasure this time that we have together. But I know we have some incredible guests lined up, and I'm really excited to dive in. So before we kind of get out of here, tell me about the new Getting Started series, because I'm a little bit excited about it.
Yeah, so we just rolled out the Getting Started series on OKRs called OKRs 101. And we're really proud of it because it's a compilation of so many answers to questions that have come in through the inbox. It's a compilation of all the FAQs that we've been writing. And we've turned it into a lesson by lesson course that breaks down why we use OKRs, how to write a great objective, what it takes to create excellent key results. And we really hope it's useful for you and your teams, right? Remember, this is always going back to even our OKRs. How do we help 10,000 teams? And for us, this was that home run way that we're hoping for this year. So check it out at whatmatters.com/getting started, or just go to whatmatters.com and you'll be able to find it on the homepage. And tell us what you think. Tell us what can be improved. But most of all, also tell us what more you want, because these are the first 3 series. And we've got a few more coming in. So help us make it even better. So thank you.
I can't wait until you guys write and film and record and launch the bit on feedback and CFRs themselves, because CFRs is my particular, subject of choice. So I always think of OKRs as being the coloring pages. They're very black and white. Did you achieve? Did you not achieve? Right? And then I think of CFRs as being the crayons that colors in the lines. So as you can see, we are going to learn how to podcast, but we also have a lot in the works and some really exciting stuff coming up. And our entire team is super excited for CFRs, and I can't wait for you to meet them.
Our team is new to this format, and so we're going to try to make the best of it, but it certainly felt like the right next thing for us to do, right? We've been focusing on replying to emails in our inbox. We've focused on creating new content. We have this Getting Started series, but this is our chance to have a true conversation in real time. So send us feedback to hello@whatmatters.com on what you want to see out of this show. And we can't wait to spend the next few weeks with you. And thank you so much. Keep up the momentum. You are doing great.